piecing on a quilt or on a quilted pillow is so stunning, so impressive. And I know that a lot of quilters find this intimidating, but it's really not too tricky. There are some really easy tips that I can give you. And today we're gonna be bold and we're gonna be daring and we're gonna face our fears and we're gonna make this modern lunar landscape quilted pillow. Let's dive in. So when I got to thinking about quarter circle blocks, which is what we're making our curves out of, they're also called drunkard's path blocks because every quilt block has to have some weird alternative name. That's just the way these things have evolved over time. So they make me think of kind of a lunar landscape. They make me think of nighttime. So I decided to use the Luna and Laurel collection from Art Gallery Fabrics. And we've got our main inspiration print is going to be this big, bold floral print. And then none of this print is going to be on the front, but there are these beautiful coordinates in the Luna and Laurel collection. So let's take a look and do step one, which is cutting up our fabrics. Okay, so we've got our beautiful, are these magnolias? I'm not sure, but our beautiful inspiration fabric. And then I chose 8 prints from the collection that I thought would look great against a black background, because I just wanted something that was really gonna pop, really give a lot of contrast, and really sort of add to the lunar landscape appeal. So we've got a black solid as our background fabric, and I've got 8 prints from the Luna and Laurel collection. And then I added in one more shade of this kind of teal, a muted teal blue, so that we would have kind of different levels of light and value. And I happen to have these handy dandy curved piecing templates. I got these from BettyCrockerAss.com, which is an amazing brand name. And I have labeled them so I don't lose them, but these come in a huge variety of sizes. I have the whole collection of them. And so these are specifically to make 3.5 quarter circle blocks, 3.5 inch quarter circle blocks. And that's what we're making today for this project. So these make your cutting so much easier. They've got a little notch in them so that you can line up your notches. If you cut that little notch while you're cutting, then you can line up the notches when you're piecing your curves together. And I sort of take advantage of that. I do the notches on this one. I don't do the notches on this one. I'll show you what I do instead. But these just make it so much easier. It's a lot cheaper to just buy yourself some cuttable plastic from a craft store and then trace this shape, which you can find online, quarter circle shape, trace it on there and cut around it. Or you can use paper templates, you can use freezer paper so that it sticks to the fabric and doesn't move around. But these are so handy. So I have already cut some 3.5 inch strips because this peek behind the curtain, I've actually made most of the blocks for this already. Peek behind the scenes. This is how the magic of Hollywood goes. So I'm gonna stack up, well, let's just stack up 4 of them for right now, because it's hard to cut around a curve without getting movement. Here we'll go, we'll stack them all up. I'm gonna line this up with my edge, or you can just cut along it and create a nice straight edge. And I'm not gonna worry too much about direction on this because I'll just move them around in my final layout to be facing the direction I want them to face. And most of them are not directional prints. We've got one directional print here. And I think my blade is not very sharp. It didn't quite cut that. So now I can cut this little notch just less than 1/4 inch. You just want to notch it. You don't want a hole when you're sewing it together. So you're going to keep that less than your seam allowance. So it's got to be like 1/8 inch.
So we've just got our little notch here, and that's just going to show us where the center of our circle is. If you don't want to put the notch, easy way to do it, and this is what I do on the outer curve, the concave part, you just fold it and press it with your finger, and that little place where it's folded, well, you know that's the center of the block. So these are our convex pieces, and then I'm going to use my black fabric to do my concave pieces. And now this one, if you measure it, this is not 3.5 inches because it wants to give you just a little room to trim because curved piecing is tricky. So that's thoughtful. So these are going to be 3.25 inches long and 3.25 inches wide. So I'm going to cut a 3.25 inch strip out of here. And for video's sake, I have already cut them. Now I don't notch these just because it's hard to do the notches. I don't want to cut up my acrylic templates. So I just fold these, but I do have the notch on the other part so that I don't have to fold each and every one. And here is my very best trick for piecing curves. And it is, of course, the Elmer's glue stick. Basically omnipotent. Is there anything it cannot do? Elmer's glue stick. So right next to that place where I made the notch, I'm gonna put just a little itty bit of glue. Not enough to get into past my seam allowance, not enough to cause any problems or make a mess. Then that fold that I created, the folded notch that I put here, I'm gonna put over that glue spot. And when it looks pretty straight, so those are lined up with each other, these are gonna be parallel to these, I'm just gonna press it down. Now, if I use my iron, I can press that and then it's all dry and it's ready to do my next gluing. But I like to just do them all at once and then set them aside, and then they're just gonna dry on their own. So here I've got my other ones that I've already done my little center glue spot on. Now you can pin these, but I think that takes up too much time, and pins are ouchy, and glue stick is not ouchy. So I don't like pins. And you can glue the entire curve if you wanted to, and then place your entire concave curve around it. But I think that takes so long, and I think it uses a lot of glue, and we already know that this is so valuable. This is my valuable tool. So I just like to do the center, and then I do bottom corner. I'm just gonna hold that there so it sticks because I don't want to get my iron out and press it, although that makes it go so ever so much faster. So I've glued it there, I've glued it there, that's all I do. So I'm gonna do that all the rest of these little pieces, and then I'll take them to my sewing machine. Okay, so the bottom layer, as you're putting this through your machine, is going to be your convex layer. That's the orange part in this current block that I'm doing. And then the black part, the concave part, is sort of the thinner strip that you want to be able to move and stretch around the block as you're sewing it. Sewing curves involves stretching and manipulating the fabric a little bit. And we're going to keep from manipulating it too much because of those two spots where we've glued it down. Those parts we don't have to worry about. So when I first start, I want to take my loose black piece and square it so that I have a nice right angle corner to feed into my machine and ease around the curve. So I'm going to do a couple of blocks and then I will show you close up. I want you to see how much I have to stop and start. That's just the name of the game on these. Take a couple stitches. I make sure nothing is puckered or bunched up. Ease it around a curve, especially in the middle. And if you feel like you're about to sew over a fold or a pucker, just lift your presser foot, move it around, unbunch it, pop that back down. If you are new to sewing curves, you can pin around the whole way. You can glue around the whole way instead of just those 2 spots that I do. You can go very, very slowly. Basically, the longer you spend pinning or gluing, the quicker it goes through the machine. And the less time you spend pinning or gluing, the longer you maybe take moving the fabric around, stretching it, unbunching it, things like that. But mostly it just takes practice. So once you're comfortable, if you have to glue the whole curve, once you're comfortable sewing those curves all glued, you can glue less and less until you're just kind of winging it. And so sewing them in and then trimming them later, and then they'll be all even and nice. So let me just show you close up doing a 1 block, and then we'll speed through this process. Okay, sewing machine view is always my least favorite. Let me adjust things around. Okay, so I just want to show you close up with that off. So we've got our convex colorful teal square here. We've got the black, which is the concave, and we've glued it in our 2 spots, just at the end and just in the middle. And then to start it, I'm going to wind this around so that the corners are lined up nice and square. And then that's how I'm going to feed it into my machine, because that's the beginning of my seam. Put in there a couple stitches. I'm going to move everything around so that the convex part here is flat. I'm just stretching the black fabric, straightening both fabrics so that they're smooth when I put them through my machine. If they're getting bunched up, I just have to lift my presser foot, move them around. Boom, easy breezy. I'm gonna get the rest of these lovely ladies done, and then we can piece them all together, lay them out. Okay, now you know this part is gonna take forever, and you know that I rely on the magic of the movies. So it's time for another time lapse. Voila, we have 36 3.5 inch pieced quarter circle blocks here. And I've slapped them up real fast on my design wall. Just kidding, I overthought it immensely and it took me forever to decide on this layout. I gave myself the unnecessary side quest of making sure that my directional fabrics were all facing the right way, which is unnecessary. You know, this is a pillow. You can just turn it around whatever which way. But I like to, you know, give myself these things that make my job harder. So good on me. I did that. So I decided to go make this a real drunkard's path, which is, I assume, where the block gets its name. When you don't complete the circle, you know, make these little Pac-Man shapes and then you change direction and make it look really reflecty and confusing. So that's what I've done here. It's a real moonlit path, and you can see they're not looking their best right now. And that's because I did not press my seams before I stuck them up on the design wall. Because these circles are going to look their best. The quarter circles are going to look their best if they can match up to where they look like one complete circle. And I do that by nesting my seams. So once I have it all laid out, then I can see where my circles are going to meet. I want those to have opposite facing seams. So this one I'll press out towards the black part, the concave part. And then this one I'll press my seam in towards the convex blue quarter circle. And I'll do that for the whole top here.
I will press each row in an alternating way so that my seams are gonna nest and each circle is gonna look crisp and complete, except where it's incomplete because I've whirled it around. So that's my next step. Boom, donezo. So you can see it looks a lot better once all of my seams have been pressed and everything's been connected. And because of all of that careful pressing back and forth in opposite directions, we've got a nice smooth outline on these circles or partial circles, and we are ready to quilt it. And I have my 20-inch square of batting and backing. This is just quilt backing. Remember, this is not visible. This is going to be inside of a pillow, so it's different than our pillow backing, which is going to show. So we want this to complement this because it will be visible and this will not be visible, but it's still super cute because I can't help myself. So we are going to baste this to this in our preferred manner, which for me is a little bit of basting spray. Some people don't like that. Some people like to pin. I don't like pins, and I don't like marking my fabric. So I'm gonna do a little bit of marking with my Hera marker, which is not a marker, it's a misnomer. A Hera marker just presses the fabric so that you can see where your quilting lines are gonna go, but you won't be able to see it on camera. So I just wanted to show you what I am gonna do. Close up. So I decided to quilt in a walking foot spiral on this to sort of enhance, we'll say, the lunar look. So I'm gonna start in the middle, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? This is a 36 square grid. So the middle is gonna be right here. And I'm gonna start myself off by doing just a little spiral. And I think I'm gonna make my spiral about 1.5 inches. And then each ring of the spiral is gonna be maybe 1/2 inch away from the one previous. And I can use my walking foot and my little guide, my walking foot guide, to keep those lines in the spiral evenly spaced. But I need to start them off somehow before I have something that I can measure against. So I am just gonna mark spiral of what I mean on here. So it looks like a little 6. I don't know if you can see that, but I started with kind of a big 1.5 inch sort of ring and then marked the beginning of my spiral, like the first loop around, so that I can then use my blocking foot and my walking foot guide to walk my way around the rest of the spiral. Easy, breezy. Let's baste it. Let's start off that spiral, and then we'll be so close to done. And I'm just gonna do some very short stitches. Like I think my stitch length is set to maybe 1.5 to start off my spiral. And I'm going to do some back stitches. Increase my stitch length to like 2.5. Now the spiral is going to be very tight at the beginning. So it's gonna require me to lift my presser foot a little so that I don't get bunched up. Or I can move the knob at the top and lift my foot a little bit. And I might do that, keep it a little looser. Lift up my foot. And I marked with my Hera marker that just kind of depressed a little spiral into the beginning here so that I could get started. Once I get past the center point again, now I know that I'm about 1/2 inch away, and I can use the edge of my walking foot because my walking foot is quite large, quite wide. Or if you have a walking foot guide, you know, one of those little sticks that comes out, you can use that to sort of measure against. But I'm just gonna make sure that the curves of my spiral are sort of evenly spaced. I at about a ½ inch, the whole way around. And as I get further away from the center, I don't have to stop and start and put up my presser foot and all of that, because the curve is just gonna get a lot gentler, a lot wider, and I can just keep the walking going at a steady pace. Easy. And this is the way it's up. It's done. My quilting is done. If it looks uneven, if my spiral looks a little wonky, that is because I decided to get real overconfident and just eyeball that curve instead of measuring it. So this is what happens when you eyeball it. It's not bad. It's pretty good. All finished. We've got our curved piecing, we've got our spiral quilting, we've got our speckled metallic binding, beautiful floral inspiration fabric on the back. It's got a little hidden, ooh, it feels scandalous. It's got a little hidden zipper in there, not invisible, but it's hidden under a little extra flap. Keep it nice and soft. Nobody wants to get snagged on a pillow. And we've got our lunar landscape, and it was not too tricky, especially if you use a handy dandy glue stick. So I hope you will try and be bold and daring and do some similarly moonscape curves and try them out. Hope to see you for the next video. Bye.